Okay. At least we're in the warm, or at least relatively warm. Depending on how cold your house is, I suppose. So, as I was saying last week, as always in the colder weather, please do take just that little bit of extra care. Think about your posture and really focusing on that aspect of posture that creates the space within your body for the movement. Aligning with the pull of gravity, sinking your center of gravity, rooting down, so this drop in your hips. Combination will remove some of the causes of tightening up in your body. And it's quite useful for people with your sort of experience to really think about what's going on in terms of the quality of the movement. It's not necessarily the first thing that we look to be able to do if we're starting off in Tai Chi, because the flow of the movement is an outcome of other things rather than something that we actively try to develop. You know, we use precision of movement and awareness, the connection in the body images like moving through water, and in combination, the flow emerges. But when you've got an idea of what that flow can feel like, it can highlight for you areas within the body where you're not experiencing that flow. There generally are, especially to start off with. So I always start off, and I sort of start on there, and then I start moving, and then I'm shuffling around, and just tuning the body in, really, in much the same way as a musician might just fiddle with their instrument a little bit before they start to play. So giving yourself that time, that space. And when you sort of go into a bit tightness in your back or something like that, try and work out, is it something that you're doing with your posture? Is it just an old habit? Or, you know, in weather like this, in this kind of climate, not at all unlikely that you kind of just stiffened up there for some reason or another. And as always, we look to get that feeling of releasing. Remember, you know, the idea that when a fist is clenched, everything's tight. I can just open. That feeling of opening is one that you may be able to sort of project in your imagination to that part of the body. It might be that you want to just review, in a way, the way that the movement itself can work on those areas, gradually eroding and dissolving them. And never underestimate also the importance of the focus of your attention beyond the sort of specifics. It's kind of like tight here or there's stiffness there. Just the sense that as your thoughts settle and you settle into the rhythm, again, the flow of the movement, the focus in, quietening your attention, that will also have a general impact on your body, most likely. Just think about your arms. Arms feeling quite heavy. Breathing settle. Trying to get that feeling of breathing with the whole of your upper body. And the gentle feeling of expansion in belly, and then the solar plexus, then in chest. Again, accounting for the fact that if the cold has made you a bit tight across your chest or in your belly, that's going to take a bit more time. And then just bouncing up and down. This movement is, if I come a bit closer, yeah, it's a sort of this springy feeling. It's not a big movement. You just see my knees moving a little bit, my hips moving a little bit. Just getting that shaking going up into your ribs and your shoulders. And then listen, your forearm and your hands swing up from your elbows. And then hands on your lower back, just pressing into the kidneys. In Chinese medicine, different parts of the body, different organ systems are often, well, always actually related to particular environments that they're kind of vulnerable to, I suppose you could say. And for kidneys, it's the cold. So if you think about it, lower back, that kind of area is one of those areas that can get very cold. So always useful to warm that area up. As I've said before, I do these exercises every day, whatever the weather. It's just past my normal sort of waking up routine, really. So although I tend to do them more in classes in the colder weather, it doesn't mean that you're restricted to doing them in the colder weather. There's limited time in classes, so. And just letting your hips sink, hands out. You're aware of particularly your upper back as you bring your hands into position. That you're not creating an extra pull there. Okay, and then we'll do the tap in. We will do it at the end of the class. I often do it at the end of the class, but you can do it at any time. Just lightly tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. On the other side. And your lower back again. Around your hips. Legs. Right on your back. And the upper part of the chest. As I've said to most of you before, those tapping exercises can be done in any sequence. They can be done also in any kind of position. So in bed or sitting down or anything like that. And again, You know, especially this time of year, it's worth thinking about things like that at the start of the day. I know people who will lay in bed and do that chilly mornings. You know, it's always a tricky time, and their whole system in their own right. In fact, the tapping exercises, what I've taken you through is just a simple routine, a sort of self massage routine, has many potential applications to it. And you know, just think about that, taking care of your body. Standing for a few moments, just letting your weight ease forwards and backwards, the balls of your feet, the front part of your heel. Feeling the changes in your body as you do this. It's really quite a small movement. I'm doing it a bit bigger as always so that you can see, but really the actual view of this would be there when I do it myself. It's just this, you know, hardly any movement at all, and yet, you know, if you can drop your hips down so that you're not blocking the connections through your body, you'll feel this very fluid movement begin to develop. And once again, the flow of the movement isn't unimportant, but it's not necessarily the first thing that we will try to produce. It's an outcome of everything else. And yet in and of itself, it also leads us to other things, the connection in our body. And can make us very aware of these small changes and movements in our body. Coming to rest with that feeling of being more in line with the pull of gravity. Don't tighten up to hold that position. You'll find that there are little changes the whole time. And think of the stillness aspect of this not being an absence of movement, but rather being a kind of balance of movement so that you're neutralized, as it were. And an image I often use is a tent. You know, a tent will still move around, but a well-erected tent with the guy ropes and pegging out and things like that means that it maintains its shape. Letting your hips drop back, bringing your hands around, cradling the ball and pushing up. And again, looking for that feeling of your center of gravity dropping gently. Body expanding and contracting. Notice what's happening in ankles, hips, and particularly perhaps in your knees. Again, giving them time to warm up a little. The movement itself will help with that. Shoulders too. Changing now to the wild goose. Try and leave your elbows very soft. As your body expands, it would tend to be your elbows that get pushed out slightly before your wrists. Imagine that you've got your arms wrapped around a balloon or a ball that somebody's about to inflate. If you're there, and it would sort of do this, as it were. Push out. So a slight feeling of pulling into your wrists and your fingers. And then follow this with parting the clouds. Same thing, I can't exaggerate, see how my elbows go out. These are very subtle changes. And, you know, I wouldn't normally deliberately stick my elbows out. It's enough that I just register them. But you see how my fingers in both directions are being pulled by my elbows, by my wrists. One more time. Now go back to rooting down. Do these three movements in the little sequence. So rooting down, followed by the wild goose, the rush to change, and then parting the clouds. And just pay attention to that rhythm of expansion and contraction. With the first of these, focusing into your belly and lower back principally. You will feel the movement through your whole body, but there's where to focus. And then as you start the wild goose, same thing, but moving up to the middle of the torso, solar plexus, lower part of the rib cage. And then belly, solar plexus, and finally up towards the upper part of your chest. So there's a progressive expansion as we go through this little set of movements in belly, solar plexus, and then in chest, that mirrors what I was saying a little bit earlier about the sort of sequence we would want to try and integrate with our breathing. So we can use this little sequence just to play with that. If it suits you, if it doesn't suit you, to be aware of your breath, then for whatever reason it doesn't feel comfortable, and just carry on without focusing on your breathing. But with this set, what we can do is just, as we reach the beginning of parting the clouds section, just see how it feels to take a breath in, expanding belly, solar plexus, and chest. It may not feel comfortable, doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. And then just let your body do whatever it wants to do in terms of breathing for the first two. And again, if you wish, just try it again. Don't hold your breath. So don't think that you've got to breathe in for the whole of parting the clouds. When your breath reaches the top, there's a slight sort of pause, a slight punctuation point, and then the out breath will come, and we shouldn't be trying to hold our breath. So we just introduced the idea of this abdominal breathing, bellows breathing, never forcing it, but if it's something you're interested in, coming back to it on a regular basis, just retraining your body, but always aware that it's very much linked with your posture and with your movement, the movement not creating any extra tightening. This time we're going to change to Dragon Plucks the Stars from the Sky. So generally speaking, all the way through these movements, our in-breath will come in a expanding stage when the center part of the body, your torso, expands, rather than necessarily when your arms expand. Though these first set of exercises, that does happen at the same time. Slightly different for some of the ones in different stances, but we'll come to that. My normal habit with breathing is to just check in with it every now and then. And increasingly, I think I find that breathing is correct for whatever pattern I think is appropriate. Of course, that comes with practice. There's nothing that we do in these sessions, for the most part, that requires a definite breathing pattern. So here, for instance, it would be an in-breath, but also remember that when your hands go up like this, you might tighten up, so it might not come particularly easily. One more time on each side. And then as we go into the next exercise, pushing in 4 directions, just do the first and the last section. So don't do the turning just yet. Again, body expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting. So if you're trying to bring your breath into the movement here, you're playing with that, just be aware that when we go to do the turn, it's really important that we don't twist our upper body up. Because if we do again, that will mean that you're trying to breathe in and expand in your upper body. And the twisting, the tightening will restrict that. So you'll end up fighting your own body. So it's going to be really important that we get the turn coming from the center of the body, which is what we should be doing. So sometimes you might be aware of your breathing as a kind of indicator that the breath isn't quite working here. And it might be an idea then just to review how you're doing the movement. Always remembering that it's often the most familiar movements that we take for granted and get wrong. So this time, going into the full set and here, turning. One more round of this. So again, with circling palms, letting your hands drop down on one side, feeling the expansion. This is a tricky exercise for breathing patterns. It's lost quite a long time, and I sometimes find when I'm doing this, I'm sort of taking sort of 1.5 breaths or something like that. So depends partly on the speed that you're moving. And of course, when we come to add the turn, if we add the turn, that complicates things. So turning gently if you wish. So this is not an exercise that I think is particularly useful from the point of view of breathing. And then changing sides. always remember that some people, including one of my own main teachers, simply don't go with the breath. They don't or very rarely integrate particular breathing patterns with the movements. So it's not a sign of failure or poor development in Tai Chi if you choose not to integrate your breathing then with the turn. One more time. Now, just letting your arms rest for the moment, sinking down, pushing up, and again, this considerably could be on an in-breath, which means that here comes the out-breath, which makes sense. It makes sense because there's a bit of pressure on your belly, and although we're not actively stretching, there is an extension here, and that's usually best done in these kinds of circumstances with the out-breath, because the out-breath is the more relaxing one. So for this one and polishing the table, if you want to follow the breathing, try and get the out breath coming as you go forwards. You might even choose to make it a sort of sign breath. And sometimes we can do the out breath with a sort of that kind of sign breath with just that extra little bit of releasing. And then polishing the table, turning first and then pushing the hips back. Be very careful with this one. The combination of the tilting forwards, not the bend, but the tilting forwards, and the turning is quite strong on our back. It's good for the back, but remember, we're always looking for that very soft quality of movement, that massaging quality of the movement. So what you're really looking for here in the lower back, and indeed also your back and also your body, isn't a kind of strained, pushy stretch, but rather a feeling that your back is just being very gently massaged. One more in each direction. And let your hand rest. Give your legs a shake. Those two exercises I don't do at the beginning of the class, you may notice. They're both a little bit stronger than some of the previous ones. And I would always give myself and other people time to kind of loosen up before we do them. We look for this gentle cultivation of movement in Tai Chi. That doesn't mean that they're not strong movements. As we start to develop in them and we learn to sort of relax the bigger muscles, then that means that other muscles, skeletal muscles, tendons, ligaments, and fascia will all begin to become more involved in the movement. They all need time to soften up. So, you know, anybody who does any kind of physical sport or anything like that will know the importance of what's called the warm up. Preparing your body for activity. It's common sense, really, but I remember once going outside and it was quite warm. It wasn't cold or anything like that. And what I couldn't be bothered to prepare. I wanted to do some sword work, and grabbed the sword, went outside, started swinging the sword around, and then went, ouch. I pulled a muscle straight away. You know, so always give yourself that preparation time, and give your awareness that chance to really feel what's going on in your body. You know, we arrive at a class, or we get up in the morning, or I just do some Tai Chi. I do this. The stillness, the quietness of the mind is an important element, and it's always worth taking the time out just to make the adjustment. Now, we're going to do part of Wild Horses Men. I forgot what it's called then. So the wider stance, again, just gradually getting that sense of sinking down a little bit more. If you want something to help you with this, put your hands on your hips and just transfer your weight a little bit from side to side. Then go into one leg, come up a little bit, go across and down. So we get a circular movement. I'll be very careful with this. Obviously, it's quite a strong exercise. Again, just look for that gentle lowering here. There'll be an opening up on the inside of your legs. And in fact, it will also work the outside of your legs. So it's a good conditioning exercise. I'm not going to do too many with you. Then back the other way. This is an exercise that Grandmaster Chen Xiaowang regularly uses in his seminars. Notice that when I come here, I'm not pushing my knee out of line or anything like that. So just being careful. You don't have to do it big, obviously. You can build up to this. So then moving your weight across and turning, and what you should feel, your index finger is in the quad, this little valley here, and as you turn, you should feel it's being squeezed in slightly, and then you go across and you turn and you feel it on this side. So this is the basic movement that we use for part of the Wild Horses Mane. Now, come into your right foot, right hand holding the top of the ball, left hand the bottom. Move across and turn. Top hand pushes straight down. Now here we get this lovely sense of opening across the chest. It's an exercise that is often related to chest and lungs. This one. Come back. Hold the ball. Move into your left and then turn to your left a little bit. So we've got 4 stages. 1, 2, coming back, hold the ball. 3, you move across. And 4, you turn. And then again, 1, 2, hold the ball, 3, and 4. So I give you those stages because we can do this to a breathing pattern, just carry on with that theme of the breathing pattern. If it's too much to think about, then just carry on with the exercise. But we go here, when you turn, take a breath in. Breathe out as you go into the opening movement. Breathe in when you come across to hold the ball. Breathe out as you go into your left. Breathe in as you turn. Now, that that in-breath is obviously quite a tricky one because you're turning at the same time as you're trying to breathe in. So this is a stronger breathing pattern. Just be aware of that, given what I was saying earlier about not twisting your body up when you're turning. So again, don't feel bound to a particular breathing pattern. And I would suggest for all of you, think about it. Maybe try it once or twice, see how it feels. And next time you practice it, do the same thing again, rather than getting to a point where you think, I must breathe in this way. That's at best unhelpful when we do that. And remember always that the in-breath should start with that expansion in your belly, never tightening your chest. What you may find is you keep the breathing pattern a few times, and then somehow it just sort of drifts away, and you suddenly realize your body's breathing differently. That's fine. Your body's doing what's best for it. So don't sort of think, oh, okay, fine. That's what's happened. Try again tomorrow and see how long you can sustain it for. Don't be in a hurry with any of these aspects of the art. Another thing to realize is that the in-breath and the out-breath aren't always equal in length. With this one, I think there's probably more emphasis on the out-breath than on the previous in-breath, for instance. But in many ways, I'm content to let my body decide that. This might be quite a big in-breath and a big out-breath, but then maybe a shorter in-breath and an out-breath. What I often do with this particular exercise is I use that in-breath here, not so much to really work with the breath, but just to make sure that I don't rush through that section. It's very easy to get to here and kind of go, oh, I've got to go over here. But just being aware that you want to take even a little in-breath here just helps you to slow down a little bit. Last time. Shake out. So one of the ways that can be quite interesting to use the breath is that it's something that is always available to us if you're comfortable with it. And bear in mind, again, there's all sorts of reasons why you might not be comfortable, but it can be a very good way of focusing our attention. So we're not going to stand in the middle of the supermarket and suddenly break into Part of the Wild Horses Mane or something like that. But we might just want to stand in the supermarket queue and calm down a little bit. In which case, just a simple awareness of breath without trying to do anything with it can be one of these anchors for your attention. One foot forwards, transferring your weight. We can also use the idea of breathing to help us really spotlight certain things. And sometimes what I say to people with this exercise is to go into one leg, rest there, and imagine you can breathe up through your leg and breathe out. You may get a sense of letting go as you breathe out, but even if you don't, it means that you're not actually rushing this stage of it. You wouldn't do that all the time, because actually the settling stage is what I describe as the punctuation point. But to really develop that idea, it's good to focus on it. So you might want to use that, you breathe in, you breathe out, and then you move. It's always worth stopping, and particularly again with these movements that are so familiar. It's you stand there and thinking, oh, I'm doing Tai Chi. I wonder what I'm going to have for lunch, or whatever. So we bring our attention back in sometimes through the medium of our breath. We know we can't breathe through the leg, of course. It's an image, it's an idea, one that just helps us to slow down. It's possibly a more useful awareness of our breathing than actual breathing methods and breathing patterns. It's a very common meditation technique to focus in one way or another on your breath. And then raising your toes and your heel. It's never imposed. Nothing is imposed in Tai Chi. These are natural movements. And I mentioned the sighing breath earlier. We do that quite naturally. It's like, how much longer is it going to take to get to the checkout kind of thing? And then stepping in. Okay, and then on the other side, there are a lot of different approaches to breathing, different breathing methods. Some of you may have come across them in different classes. But the foundation one, and the most important, the most practical one for our daily lives, is that abdominal breathing. And everything else is based on that in one way or another. Beginning to raise your toes and your heel. So in a way, this is where that awareness of your alignment root over your supporting leg that maybe we developed through just taking that time to breathe through the leg, as I described it, becomes really important, because that pausing, that punctuation gives us a chance to really align over our leg. And that means that when we come to step in, we're more likely to be stable. And then step through. The contemporary image, of course, would be if you're walking out on thin ice, but I wouldn't recommend it. You can imagine it. That's good enough. And then stepping back. Doesn't have to be thin ice, does it? Could just be testing the ground in front of you. Is it slippery or not? And then bringing your feet down. Have your right foot forwards. We're going to do pigeon spreads its wings because this is another one which I think lends itself to the breathing quite nicely. The hands are a good indicator. They start over the belly. As we go forward, there's this sense of a rising expansion through our body. Quite a few people have fed back to me that they do find it quite good for the breathing. Again, a light touch. Start with your weight in your back foot. Sink forwards, and as you settle into your front foot, feel that expansion pushing up. And yes, that would be the in breath, perhaps, and then the out breath. Again, usual approach, not every time, just sort of register the possibility of it. Notice whether in the process of moving your arms, you're sort of tightening or stiffening, because that will have an impact on your breath, apart from anything else, not just your breathing, of course. When we go forwards, there's a slight sense of angling backwards, but it's not this. This will tighten your chest. Generally speaking, you know, think about the name, the pigeon spreading its wings. If you watch something like a wood pigeon, they sort of seem to push their chest forwards all the time. They've got this sort of strut about them. I suspect that's where it takes its name from. One more time. And try that on the other side. So, weighting your right foot, pushing forwards, pigeon spread the wings. One more time. And check out. Now, with some of the other movements we do from this posture, if we want to think of the breathing, it has a slightly different emphasis. So with something like fisherman cast a net or pushing a wave, we would think about kind of expressing through the out breath. So what I would do for fisherman cast a net, I would breathe in here. I would want my body to fill up like the bellows action, and then I would imagine breathing out through my arms. Same for pushing away. So it's got that kind of quality to it. So there's a slight change there. Similarly, you know, if we go to do this movement, the figure of 8, in breath and out breath. So just like you might if you were going to hit something, hit a nail with a hammer, or maybe try and sort of break up a piece of wood with a mallet or something like that. You might go like that. So the out breath can have that expressive quality to it. So let's try that with fisherman cast a net. Just sinking back. See how that feels to take a breath in, and then imagine breathing out through your arms. As always, if this doesn't work for you, just focus on different aspects of the movement. in many ways, we should regard the use of breathing in this way as a quite an advanced technique, something that when we come across it, we think, oh, it'd be nice to be able to do that. I'll practice for a few years and see if I can make it work, rather than something that is going to just be kind of straightforward and easy. And then coming back in here, as you turn again, there's the in-breath, the body filling up, and the out-breath. In-breath and the out-breath. Of course, it has, with this one, you may even be able to integrate that idea of breathing in through your leg, giving you that extra sense of settling down. One more time. Good. And then left foot forwards, fisherman castanet. And then coming back and turning. Figure of 8, infinity sign movement. Turn your front foot out a little bit, settling into the front foot, and stepping. And changing direction. One more time. You have room. And bring the feet down. Excellent. Once again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Shoulders and arm. The other side. And your back. Around your hips. Legs. Nice on your belly. Upper part of the chest. So I focused on the breathing a little in this session because I think it can be a time of year where particularly people with, if we've got some kind of condition that affects their breathing, but for all of us, we're all subject to the cold. So it seemed like an opportune moment to think about it, but recognize again that in many ways it is quite an advanced thing. As always, take from what I've said whatever might be useful to you, and the other things you can store away and you can think about at some other point because they might be useful to you at some point. But whichever aspect of this really kind of works well for you, and if none of it works well, then just be reassured that actually by working on our posture, by working on our movement, whether you realize it or not, whether you're doing it consciously and deliberately or not, you are actually doing things that will help you to develop your breathing. So go nice and easy as always with the breath. Don't get too caught up on it, and just make use of it whenever you wish. Now, embrace tiger return to the mountain. Again, we can use this with an associated breathing pattern, but we can also just think in terms of particularly that final stage is that kind of sighing, releasing breath. So whichever you like, I'll call the breathing pattern, but again, just use it however you wish. Just sink down. So as you push up, it will be an in breath followed by an out breath, and then an in breath and the final out breath. You might just want to focus on the breathing in those final two stages. You might not want to focus on it at all. Just one more time. Just stand for a few moments. Once again, just adjusting your posture, noticing how this basic standing stance feels at the end of the session. And shake hands. As always, thank you very much, everybody. Hope that was useful to you. We have